We'll go ahead and call our Thursday, May 4, 2023 Roanoke County School Board work session to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Here. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Item 2.01, approval of personnel changes.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of personnel changes.
Second?
Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I'll
ma'am.
accept Ann Cranwell. We're supposed to cut her out. Cranwell? Personnel
Oh,
retirement.
I'd love to
I was
do
looking
that.
around waiting. Everybody was looking at me like I'm supposed to make the motion. All right. Item 3.01, updated wellness policy and triennial wellness report. Mr. Mark Jones, Ms. Jamie Estrada, and Mr. Kevin Bertram. Welcome.
Everything.
Thank you.
That's nice. Jeez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. All schools participating in the National School Lunch Program are required to assess their local wellness policy compliance and update the policy as needed on a triennial basis. In addition, school divisions are required to post the findings of their assessment to the website. Attached to board docs is the triennial assessment tool and the results of that survey. I'm pleased to announce that all schools were in compliance with the current wellness policy. Attached is also the assessment summary that will be posted to the website, as well as an updated policy 9.16 based on the recommendations of our assessment team, as well as the on-site VDOE audit team that reviewed our programs. Staff recommends approval of the updated policy at the next school board meeting to allow the posting of the information before the required June 1st deadline. Any questions?
We can discuss the policy, because I have issues with it.
Sure.
Yeah, so this is the policy that says, under the health, the wellness section, there's a line in there. Can you pull it up, if you don't mind? Under other activities that promote student wellness, RCPS provides school climates that support social and emotional well-being and promote positive relationships among students, staff, parents, and community members. I don't have any issue with that, but I do take issue that we need to list that all RCPS schools implement PBIS as part of the strategic plan, and then that we're going to say that we're using the CASEL, which is the collaborative for academic, social, and emotional learning as our tool. And my understanding is that as a school board,
Bless you.
I just don't want to rubber stamp things, and I hate that we continue to come back here and we just go ahead immediately and put it right on the agenda. I think we need to involve the public and our stakeholders. They should have time to digest information, and that's fully transparent governance. That's how it should be, and that we don't move immediately to throw something on a consent agenda. The issues that I have with this is that the SEL sector has grown dramatically in the past 3 years. From November 2019 to 2021, spending increased by 45%. It's supposed to be $1 billion industry and educational sector coming up, if it's not already a $1 billion education industry. So in short, the SEL industry has changed dramatically since 2020. And although they tout that they're evidence-based and that they do all these meta-analyses, the internal validity might be there, but the external validity, because the product that they're selling has now become transformative SEL. And the beliefs out there among the general conservatives are that we're inserting some CRT into the SEL, and now it's kind of morphed into something different. And I do not want to align our policy with an organization. I think that it's our job to set boundaries and define what we want to do. But as a conservative, I believe in the free market. And I would argue that, the policy absolutely should set expectations. That would be the purpose of it, and boundaries. But in our county, the school board gets to decide what, and we're going to look for direction from our superintendent as how to get there. And by putting in our policy, we're going to use this program, and this program shackles us to that. And so I'd like as a school board for us to look at this further and discuss it and have more time to make sure that we're doing the right thing, because we do not want to be shackled. And it is my understanding that Castle has been partnering with Planned Parenthood for the past 5 years, and some other global initiatives that I tell you right now I don't support.
All right, yeah, that wasn't one of the proposed changes. That was language that was already in the policy, but yeah, I'm happy to.
The policy needs to be
Whatever we
changed
need to
then.
do, yeah.
Any discussion on that? So I guess what we need to do is come back to that after you, Dr. Nicely, look at some of her complaints on that.
Would the concern, Ms. Fachani, probably be addressed if removing that one phrase, using the, whatever CASEL stands for, Collaborative for Academic, Social, Emotional Learning, instead of saying using that, just start off with schools provide students with the instruction. Don't reference that
I'm
particular
all for
group.
wellness and mental health.
Right, I know you are.
I just don't want to be shackled to I
To
think
that
when we.
particular group.
Yeah, or to any group. I just
Right.
don't think as a school division, we should be writing in our policy who we're using. It's like if so what, now we're gonna put in our policy, we're only gonna use AVIS? We're only gonna use RMMM? I mean, it just shouldn't be set up like that. It should be a policy with expectations set and boundaries set, and then we get to decide who we use. But when you put somebody's name in it and you tie it into a policy, I'm gonna take issue
I
with
think
it.
that's fair. So if we, and I guess, well, this was already in there, but if we start that sentence with schools provide and take out the reference to that particular, and then this is, an organization that is considered, to be the best practice
It is.
organization. But without referencing that, if we just start off with schools provide, then that
Can
would
you
make
make
that
it
okay.
bigger, Chuck? I don't have my reading glasses on. Oh, you should do that for every paragraph.
I can't even see that without my readers.
So it's under other, other activities that promote student wellness. So RCPS provides school climates that support social and emotional well-being and promote positive relationships among students, staff, community members, et cetera. I mean, that's fair, right? That's exactly what we should be doing. All RCPS positive relationships among students, wait, did I miss it? As part of their positive behavior implementations and supports. And I'm a fan of PBIS in the elementary schools. I'm not so sure, again, we've had this discussion, it should be in the.
Yeah, I think part of what we're
Further,
working on is
but-
a misunderstanding, even with some of our staff in terms of what that looks like at the different levels, so we're gonna continue that conversation. But the next sentence, if we, instead of saying using the CASEL, if that sentence just starts with schools provide students, then that eliminates the problem of making that particular reference.
Yep, that's
I
fine
hear
with
what
me.
you're saying about that.
And, I mean, to that extent, do you feel like we could possibly be shackled by PBIS? I mean,
Well, that's something that is foundational to, our behavioral intervention program right now, so.
I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but let's say at some point, people decide not to use PBIS.
Right, then we can change
Then we
it.
have to change the policy to do that.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess the argument is then, do we even need it listed in there? That we have to, as a part of our strategic plan?
Yeah. I'd like to see it listed in there, but
How about, all RCPS schools may, I mean, I would,
Would it be possible not to reference the
PBIS, the
title
program?
with the proper noun? Using positive behavioral interventions and supports is just general.
oh, yeah,
And
Yeah.
instead of using it as
that's
a
just
proper name.
positive, general
I would,
statement.
yeah, I would
I'm okay
prefer
with
I
that.
didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, just so it's not, because that is it's a.
Reference it generically, not by name.
Exactly.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I was.
And I agree that, in my mind, we shouldn't be using anything that pushes any particular agenda.
Yeah,
So-
which I would argue that it is not.
Yeah, no, I'm
But
not, I'm
but
not
also-
suggesting it does.
Right,
I'm
but I
just-
hear the concern
just to
about
Ms. Faciani's
referencing, as a
point.
matter of practice,
Yeah.
in a policy referencing a particular name.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
All right.
So
So,
with
to be
those
clear,
two-
go ahead,
With those two changes,
that's my question.
move it to
If I had
consent
those two
agenda.
changes, I would be okay with that, if the board agrees.
Everybody else okay with that?
So
I'm
you'll
fine,
move those for consent agenda?
provided
Yeah.
those changes.
Unless you
get
wanna
made.
leave it out there longer, our next meeting is
Again, like
18th.
this is things we need to talk about with our policy. I think it's in the best interest of our stakeholders that moving forward as a school board, we make it very clear what policy changes we are doing. You know, whether or not you agree with them or don't agree with them, I still need to hear from you. So it's good governance, and other school divisions do this, where they don't vote on stuff in a work session that, at the
you're not
next
voting
meeting.
today.
No,
Right.
sorry, whatever's presented to them in a work session is not put into the next regular meeting. There's 2 cycles to it, some of them. So
Well, two,
I would appreciate it if we allowed our citizens to see what changes we're making to a policy, so they are giving ample time to give ample input.
Yep. So 2 things. One, if we go ahead and make those changes, then we'd be okay for now, and we can always change this. But secondly, we used to have 2 meetings, and
It was, honestly, it was a good 30 days. And we are the only division that
So-
did that in the entire state.
That's what made us the best.
I had to get that in.
I know you did.
So, but if we make those changes, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I would still like to see us moving forward. I think
Have more time.
that all our votes should be posted on the website. Every single vote should be posted on the website, not just, they voted on this. It should be a count. And
That's recorded, you're talking about the action items?
yeah, it should be a count. And
Those are actually listed in the minutes of the meeting.
they're in the minutes, but they're not available on the website very readily. It's like you have to jump through numerous hoops to try to find it. It's not a document, it's not a PDF that you click on it. Like when we have our agenda, you just click on what is on discussion, it's very easy. They don't have to go to Board Docs to see it. Board Docs is not user-friendly, in my opinion. So it's just one extra step. So why not create an element of awareness and open opportunity for everybody to see what we're doing.
So essentially, you could take this with action items and just put the number of votes, yay, nay.
Oh, yeah. Like Culpeper does a great job on their website.
I'm
putting
okay
stuff on.
with that. I mean.
That's all I have to say.
I mean,
Yeah.
it makes it easier.
Yeah, it would be a link and you click on it and then you would see this.
I have no problem with anybody knowing what I vote or how I vote.
That's right.
We'll look into that.
I mean, I'll tell you, when I was running for school board, I wanted to see what everybody voted on. And I
Hell yeah.
couldn't find it. It would just say it was passed or, you know.
I'm good with that.
And as a school board, honestly, we all get along, but there's a lot of school boards that don't. And not every vote should be 7-0 or 5-0. I mean, it's good to have different
That's
opinions.
right.
It's good to have different ideas. I mean, that's what makes the world go round.
So for this particular policy, I would suggest you have 2 options, right? You could, if you wanted, in the name of transparency, put it on as an action item for the next meeting. That way it's coming back up, you can discuss it further, you can vote then. Or if you wanted just to give it more time, the next opportunity would be for the June meeting. So that would probably be the 2 options, right?
Yeah, I would say the June meeting, that way we don't have to give it much discussion as an action item. We don't need to, but give the public.
Well, the main thing is you just want to let them know
Yeah.
that it's out there. You've agreed to the language, so it's just putting it out there where they can see it and have time to look at it.
And then you could decide, if you get, a lot of public feedback, there seems to be a lot of questions about it, you could decide, okay, in the June meeting, for example, it should not be on consent, you want it
Could
on
be an
action.
action,
To allow
exactly.
for more discussion.
That's how it should be, in my opinion. And I do have a question about the nutrition program. So if a student shows up and doesn't have any money in their account, they cannot be directed, you have no money in your account. Is that right?
The law has really gotten have you all met, you voted to bring Jamie Estrada in as your new supervisor of nutrition, but I'm not sure we formally
You
introduced.
didn't know what you were
her.
getting into.
She's already doing a bang-up job. We had an issue at one of the cafeterias just, I think, yesterday, and boy, she was right on top of it, so we appreciate
Well,
everything she's doing.
to clarify that, it was my understanding that the kid will still get lunch, they just can't get anything extra.
Correct.
So it's not like the kid has to get a separate
Sandwich
lunch
or
from
something.
Right, because I know in the old days, they would just give you a bag lunch or something.
There's no special meals served. They can choose from the same options that any other student does. There's nothing called to the attention of the student.
Can't say,
that
here's a
there's
cheese
problem.
sandwich.
So
That's
to
what we
answer
used to
your
do.
question
Yep.
about
Right,
geez.
so other divisions, not us, I don't think so, but I would like the numbers on this, if you don't mind. How much money are we losing because of that program?
Right. It is definitely grown this year since the end of COVID. During COVID, we had waivers so that all students ate for free. And this is our first year back, but I'd be happy to get that number for you and
If you had
provide it
to
you.
just take a guess at it, just so the public might be aware?
Accumulation, do you have any idea?
$95,000 to date.
Some district,
95,000.
Of unpaid, like
Yes.
lunch?
At this moment, that was our number yesterday when I pulled reports.
and it's gonna go
We do a lot
higher.
of lunches.
It's a lot of lunches.
And this is all, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
This is
This has all been
legislation.
hampered over the last few years. Different state laws have been passed about not, you can't shame kids or whatever. Not that you want to shame kids, but, I mean, their hands were tied in terms of,
There-
like you used to do back in the old days and trying to collect.
There's an anti-lunch shaming law that prevents us from communicating anything to the students about their meal debt. The only thing we can say is if they do try to buy any extras and they don't have cash on account, we tell them that they don't have enough money for that today.
So every school board, I think, needs to address that issue.
Absolutely.
Because divisions are losing money because of legislation that's in place. And delegates and our representatives need to be told, people in Richmond right now, you need to change that. Because we can't fight it. But we're gonna lose, and we're gonna continue to lose money.
And it just, I mean, just to be clear, it's coming out of their budget, their what's the word, Susan?
Sufficient.
Yeah.
Actually,
Ms.
They
Mason would like to say
can't.
something about this.
the law does not allow the nutrition fund to cover when parents don't pay.
Oh,
So
that's kinda
I
like-
have in the finance department a bad debt line set up to cover. And this is when students leave the school division or graduate. In the current year, I think we set up about $35,000 line item for the budget for that.
You're gonna need to make it bigger.
We are.
Now, here's what I think about that deal, is you can never blame the child for this, right?
That's right.
And I will never, ever, 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 call me whatever you want to call me, let a kid go hungry. Now, if we want to solve it at the state level, the federal level, and the adult level, I get it. But every kid that comes through there, I will never, ever, 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 have I said ever enough? Let that kid go hungry.
I
It's
I
not
agree
his
with you,
fault.
Tim, but
Not
the
his fault.
issue in the legislation is that they can't tell the kid, you have no money.
Can't bring it to their attention.
You can't even bring it to their attention. No, there's no different notification.
But
So-
again, if you're notifying the adult,
Yeah,
that's
how
one
is it
thing.
brought to the parents' attention?
So Jamie has a great process for that.
Yeah, so we've added, we have weekly text messages that go out for any family or any student's account that goes over $6 in debt. In addition, an email goes out to parents. That's the primary parent listed in Synergy and the alternate parent. Both receive those. Monthly, we send out a mailing once a month for debt letters to parents. And we ask for principals to help us identify any students that could potentially qualify for programs that we can guide parents. We encourage every parent to fill out a free and reduced lunch application to see if they qualify. And we do everything in our power to try to get as many people on the program or help them work out a payment plan, anything along those lines.
Yeah, so-
If somebody's in debt and then they go, because I know it's an app they use, they go on the app, they put money on the app, it would just subtract the debt first, correct?
Correct.
Now, what happens if somebody's, say, $300-400 in debt, which seems to be reasonable right now? I mean, no wonder some of these people are never, I mean, because there's no implication to the child,
Correct.
and we're not going after them civilly, so I can kind of see why we're in this position now. But I don't think it's anything that we can control.
Well, we can't, but people
Right.
need to be aware of it. Awareness is everything, right? And you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know this until recently. But what's interesting is, just so Tim, you're clear, these are not kids who qualify for free and reduced lunch.
No, I get it. I
Yeah,
I
these are
understand. I
just-
just, and I totally agree with what the concept. I just think when it gets to the child level,
Oh, yeah, well,
I'm bound.
just
I'm
qualify for
bound.
free, because we get
I'm not
funding
gonna-
for free and reduced lunch. So
Right,
we want you to,
exactly.
if you qualify, we want you to qualify for it.
Yeah.
We want to help you. So is that a new system that you've put in place?
Correct, because for the last few years, we haven't had any meal debt concerns due to COVID. Everyone was eating for free. So, and next year, we plan outreach right at the beginning of the year to try to get as many families as possible on the program, or at least applying for the program. There's no guarantee they would qualify, but it never hurts to try, because there's also a number of other benefits that a family could have from being a part of it, so.
Okay.
And do we have, Title I would be completely free across the board, right?
Is that true currently?
There are 6 CEP schools this year that do qualify, and none of those students are charged for any meals.
And that's across the board in the
School.
entire
Yes.
school?
Yes.
And we have 6?
And that may be a factor, this is the first year where the students who don't qualify, except for those schools, have had to pay. I mean, So maybe parents have gotten unused to having to pay the last couple of years. I mean, who knows if that's a factor, but.
That could very well be a
But
factor.
it's definitely a problem.
reasonable.
You're right
Yeah.
to bring it up, it's definitely a problem.
It's definitely a problem, yeah. So thank you for taking that initiative and doing that. And do you have any data as to whether that's helped?
We see weekly dips in the number when the texts and the emails go out, but unfortunately it does continue to climb. It's definitely a concern for us. And just to clarify as well, that 95,000 is not bad meal debt at this point. As long as a student's active in our system, that will continue with them, with the hopes that a parent can take care of it. And it's not referred to Ms. Peterson until the student leaves the district and it becomes uncollectible.
So it's not written off at the end of the year?
No, sir.
So, and we're getting written near the end of the year, so 95 is pretty close to what the year total would be.
Very close, yes.
That's a playground
But to
for every
clarify
school.
what she was saying, 95 is the total amount
Yeah.
the parents owe, but we would only write off a portion of that to the general
All right.
fund.
Yeah, did you hear what I said?
All right, to circle back around on
All
the
right.
original,
So we're good if
Piece.
I think we still need 30 days on it.
Yeah,
Will you meet your deadline by June 1st?
I can provide documentation that we're making progress and it's been brought to the board for their approval, and I think that would be fine.
Is that for the report or the policy?
For the policy. And the report
Okay.
needs to be posted by June 30th of the year, so.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, just make sure I'm clear, I'm hearing that this can go on consent for the June meeting.
with the requested changes, yes.
Right.
So we got through the first one.
I know.
Only took 22 minutes.
Sorry, but that was important. This is why we need that policy committee. Then I
Thank
wouldn't
you.
have to
Welcome
speak
aboard, I
about
hope.
this.
It's a little smoother next time.
Next time you bring it, we're gonna cut it down to 15 minutes.
Please don't scare her off.
So I am not gonna rubber stamp through everything, people. I'm just not gonna do it.
We're going to go back to 4 meetings. 3.02 CTE Competitive Innovative Equipment Grant Award. Mr. Jason Sir, welcome, Mr. Sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. I have a short one, I think. Roanoke County Public Schools applied for and was recently notified it received a CTE Competitive Innovative Equipment Grant in the amount of $37,500. We've applied for this before and not received it. This time we did.
Nice.
We're excited about that. Staff recommends appropriation of this grant at the May 18th school board meeting.
What was the amount of the grant?
$37,500, so it was a nice chunk.
Yeah,
And
that's
we're gonna do
nice,
some
yeah.
pretty neat innovative stuff with it, with some computers and stuff that, if you've seen Iron Man, some stuff out in front of you, three-dimensional stuff. It's really neat
Great.
for the kids.
Are you limited?
I'm sorry?
Are limited to where you spend it
Well, we applied
It's more
for
particular
specific
project.
equipment,
for that equipment?
for that equipment and software that comes along with it for programs at Burton and the
Okay.
Governor's STEM Academy, et cetera.
They got some good press the other night, where their competition in the welding, I saw that.
The welding art,
Yeah,
yes, the welding art article was quite good,
that was.
yeah.
Talented.
That seems like an easy one for
That's
the consent agenda, May
This
18th.
is where we make up 30 seconds. We're good to go.
Mr. Chairman, that's go on consent for May 18th meeting.
Yes, sir. All right.
You okay with that?
Next.
You got an energy drink? 3.03 Health Insurance Reserve and Stop Loss, Ms. Susan Peterson. Welcome, Ms. Peterson. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, sir. It's good to be here. Good to see you all today. On the phone, I have Miss Claire Harlan, who is our insurance consultant. So what I have prepared is I've got a PowerPoint to share with you, and there are certain slides that she is going to help me. Oh, there she is. We can see you, Claire. And we're going to go ahead and switch over to the PowerPoint. And certain slides that are a little more technical insurance related, she can help out. She really is, she's an amazing woman and she's really good at explaining this stuff. So let's first start off with where the health insurance reserves come from. Just kind of remind everyone, we have a health insurance fund set up. Money goes into the health insurance fund. 70% of the money that goes in are Roanoke County Public Schools paid benefits on behalf of our employees. And then 29% are the employee payments for the health insurance. And a little teeny bit of other amount of money coming in. On the usage side, 91% of what comes out of the health insurance fund are for claims. And then we have a little bit for the HRA contributions, actually ends up being claims because that's what we pay to our employees as a benefit to help pay for their claim, their portion of the claims. We've had some transfers in the past, a few times in the past. We've transferred money for a bonus or for other personnel-related needs. We run the wellness clinic and the wellness program through here, and we've got administration fees that we pay for consulting, for the third-party administration of Anthem to take care of the claims for us, right? So that's kind of big picture, what goes into and comes out of the health insurance fund. I would like to remind you that the budget that was just approved did not increase insurance rates for our employees. Instead of doing that at a time when we were trying to put more money into our employees' pockets, we went down the path of using some of the reserves. So if you look on this slide
21 and 22.
right here, we have planned to use $1.4 million of reserves to cover claims for next year. That kept us from making any adjustments at all to the premiums.
Can you explain two things? So 2001, 2022, is that the same issue? Or do we use that for something else?
Well, those would have been actual where claims came in higher than
Premiums?
premiums.
Okay, so then we come to 24, and this is, explain that one more time.
We planned to use health insurance reserves so we didn't have to increase revenues.
So are you saying our plans increased this year? Now, last year they didn't increase. I think that was because of the COVID, or maybe the year before, whatever it was. We didn't have any claims because people, weren't using the, right? So we didn't have, so even though we didn't raise premiums this year, you're saying they did go up?
Well,
The cost went up, I guess.
the cost went up.
Right,
But we
that's what I'm
didn't
asking.
raise premiums because we don't pay a premium for our insurance. We calculate a premium to charge to cover our expenditures. And instead of going through that process, we stayed with because I knew you were gonna use this money some way. I figured we might as well keep it in here and use it for
Right, but did we
claims.
know that? Did we
yes.
know that our premiums went up? I don't remember that.
The premiums did not
Premiums
go
did.
up.
not
Did not.
That's why you have a negative. They did not go up,
Susan, good
So
job.
what is the 1.4 for?
to keep us from raising premiums.
You don't know what it's gonna be.
The cost of
Our
doing the
premiums to
program
the
went up.
employees didn't go up.
Right.
But obviously,
The cost went up.
exactly.
Sure.
But
So
we
that's-
didn't run
that's-
the cost through the general fund. Because
Right.
if we ran the
don't-
cost through the general fund, then we wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the other stuff that we
This
really
is
wanted
the
to do.
first time I've heard that we used $1.4 million out of this fund to not raise costs to our employees. That's my issue. Did anybody else know that? You knew that? You knew we
were
took a
able to-
1.4 from
I
the,
remember when she told us that the rates weren't
It
gonna
was
go
a
up.
way to
for the
not,
employees,
yeah.
that the rates weren't gonna go up.
now I
Now,
get that the
being,
rates weren't going
being
up.
self-insured, you've got to say, well, what am I gonna, I got a catastrophic situation that may happen. We have a couple, I think.
We're gonna talk
you know
about that.
this?
later.
It's part of the budget presentation.
Okay, so you saw the 1.4 and it reduced our emergency fund. Brent, you knew that
It's
too?
not our emergency fund, it's the health
It's
reserve.
not,
Yeah, well, the
It's
health,
health
that's what I
reserve.
meant, but.
Well, I think it
because
was
you're
in a,
thinking we took money out to use it.
No. I'm thinking I never knew about the because I've asked this question 10 times in the last 2 or 3 months about if we needed it for the budget, we have emergency, or not, whatever you want to call it, reserves.
Reserves.
We have that there, right? I've asked that 10 or 12 times. I mean, go back and listen. That's
That's what,
But I think when we set our, the discussion about whether health premiums are going up, that's sort of a separate decision that they're calculating in terms of you run our program. I mean, I know you know that. So, in other words, there was not money used to balance the general fund budget.
Right.
You know that,
We
okay.
took 1.4 to keep the premiums the same.
Yeah, it's always
So
a
next
decision every year, right?
everything's gonna kind of go up double, I would assume.
Maybe or
Based-
maybe not. It really depends on the claims experience of how we come through this year.
Yeah, but, I mean, history would
There's
tell
always a
us.
risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So y'all, and again.
That's what you're self-insured.
Shame on me for not knowing this, because I've, again, said we had this reserves available many times, and until this last email, that we were taking 1 point, and again, I should know that, this is on me, don't get me wrong. But nobody ever beat me over the head, no one ever beat me over the head to say that 1.4, we were reducing, because, in fact, I was gonna, and obviously we can't do that now, but I was gonna say, part of the presentation to me would have been that we give our staff and employees a holiday for a year. Whatever, I don't know what we'd have to calculate that, but anyway, because I knew we had $7 million in reserves. We don't have $7 million in reserves, or 6.5, we've got 5 now. And if y'all knew it, then shame on me, but
Well, I think the climate that we were dealing with at the time was inflation and rising costs and everything else. So it was a win for our employees.
oh, absolutely.
That we were able to not raise insurance premiums. And I think a lot of people do work
And
to
I
get
missed a
the
lot.
insurance. So it makes sense to me that we would try to help them
And I
out.
missed a
'Cause
work
that is-
session, maybe that was
Insurance
it.
premiums are real, I mean, they can get,
But you
really
realize what's gonna
lofty.
happen next year. That's what we gotta.
well, that's why we got Susan.
Well, and that brings up a
And
good
that's why I
point.
have clarity.
Yeah.
If we heard anything from the county on the bid for insurance, because I know that was out for bid.
Right.
I think they're in the final, I got an email this past week, they're in the final negotiations and wrapping that up. Everything that we presented is hand in hand. What Ms. Harlan does is provide us an estimate of what our expenses will be next year. That is what this information up here, these claims numbers, are based off of her company goes out and does a lot of really technical, difficult analysis of prior claims and what we can expect coming forward. She doesn't know for a fact how many people are going to be diagnosed with different diseases or problems or whatever, but they have a formula where they can guess that. And so that's where that number came from, is her information. We take that back, drop it in with our number of employees who are estimated to be on our program, and we come up with if we can cover that or not. And in this case, we took the calculated risk to use up reserves as opposed to raising the
Well, for me, the rest of the presentation is moot. I don't need, that's all I needed, but
Well, you want to hear the stopgap though, right? The stopgap provision.
you're talking about where
Yes,
the
we
funds
need
should
that.
be?
Yeah,
I think we already know that. But
No.
go ahead, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
the 250.
I mean, that,
So the next slide
I think
shows,
this is good information regardless, because I didn't understand this until today, going through it, so.
so the next slide is really talking about stop loss. We pay an extra amount of professional fees to have a stop loss. This will protect us per each participant per policy year. Our out-of-pocket is up to $250,000, right? And so anything over that amount, someone else will pick up and pay for us. And then, so what Ms. Harlan's company does is analyze all of this and come down to, in red, where we need to hold back money to cover our portion of these claims. For the last letter we got was 3.7 to 4.2 million is what we need to hold
this is
in-house.
known.
Claire, do you have anything else to add about stop loss?
Well, stop loss is the one form of insurance that Roanoke County Schools does hold. You're self-funded, your responsibility, your liability is to pay claims as they are incurred, and you pay administrative fees to the carrier to process those claims. In addition, to protect yourself against catastrophic loss, you purchase the specific stop loss. The limit you're at, as Susan has explained, is $250,000 per participant. And in exchange for that protection, you pay a fee. And so things are when we looked at our stop loss going forward for the next policy year, we've got a new wrinkle in the stop loss, and I think that's really what Susan wanted me to address today. Want me to go on to that slide now, Susan?
Chuck, if you can bring up the slide. Yes, I've got this laser claim slide up, so if you want to discuss the lasering.
Yeah, okay. So lasering is a concept in what we call the stop loss market. You'll also hear it referred to as the reinsurance market because it's protecting you and ensuring your self-funded claims. So this is a practice that's fairly technical within the reinsurance industry where the reinsurer looks at your claims, and if they determine there is an individual or individuals who have a predicted liability that is significant and could have a significant impact on the plan, instead of charging a higher premium against all claims that this claim may happen in the future, they do a process that is referred to as lasering. And what that means is they identify that individual and say, instead of a $250,000 stop loss deductible, we're going to apply a higher stop loss deductible against this claimant. They base it on the clinical understanding of what's going on with the individual and what has been pre-authorized for future services. So they kind of have an idea of what's coming down the pike. So instead of charging a fee against everyone, they'll charge this potential higher deductible. So what we are finding is, based on the claims experience that we are seeing in the plan, the reinsurance carrier has said we need to laser 2 claimants that are members of Roanoke County Public Schools. The first individual would have a stop loss limit instead of $250,000 of $700,000, and the second one would have a stop loss limit of $450,000 instead of $250,000. So as you can see by the math on the slide, that the additional risk is a maximum of $650,000. What the trade-off is do they build that $650,000 into your stop loss fee and you pay it no matter what? Or do you laser these individuals, have a higher deductible, and if the claim comes through as is anticipated, you would pay it. But as you know, claims are not guaranteed. You may have somebody come off the plan. You may have somebody whose course of treatment changes and what was projected doesn't happen. So you're sort of taking the risk on whether you'll actually pay that full amount. Whereas if it's built into your fee, you're going to be guaranteed to pay that full amount. So it's something that we've had presented at Roanoke Schools a number of years ago, probably about 6 or 8 years ago. And this is the first time it's come back around. So this is kind of a portion of what we're experiencing with our renewal this year. And it, as Susan will show on the next slide, it does further impact the reserves. Susan, I don't know if you want to talk about that now, or if anybody wants to ask me questions about this kind of concept of lasering, because I recognize that it's fairly technical and most people don't live and breathe it like I get the fortune to do.
So this is the first year this has ever happened?
No, there was a time period, oh gosh, it's probably been about 8 years ago where there was an individual with the schools that was lasered. And I will tell you that at that point, the claims never materialized. In that case, it was an individual that was on a transplant list and it never happened. So you never paid those claims for that individual. You never had to pay the higher claim amount. But it doesn't happen very often, and that's why it's a little bit, we wanted to take the opportunity to explain it today because it's not something you see in most years in your insurance contract.
Mr. Chairman?
But it is fairly common across the industry.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
If it was 2, basically, that we are thinking about, what happens when we go to 4? Or we don't know, and they may have a situation.
So from our understanding, this would come up only during a renewal, correct, Claire?
Yes, this is a one-time look. You're locked in for the next year. We can negotiate with the carrier something we call no new lasers, which says we would like a guarantee that you won't identify new lasers next year. We've identified these 2 and they may continue, but you can't identify a 3rd or a 4th down the road. So we do
Before
that.
we
The
know it.
other alternative is we can always market the reinsurance as a separate component of your health insurance contract. We don't have to take the whole thing out to bid. We can just and that's what we've done in the past, Susan, as you'll recall, is negotiate a separate contract with a reinsurer and negotiate those more favorable terms through that process as well. So there are things that we can do to try to protect against it. This year, when we were looking at the program across the board, we were facing some significant catastrophic claims experience that did limit our ability to negotiate anything further or favorable.
Chuck, if you wanna go back and go to that last slide. So what this means, you've got the health insurance reserves that I put on the left 3 columns are what is in your board docs report every month. You have 2022, when we ended the audit, we had 6.4 million as our balance. As of March of this year, it came down to 6.2 million, so that's only 9 months of the year. When we finish out the year, we'll have a different balance. I've dropped in the 2024 budget, that will bring us down to 4.8 million. And when we drop in the lasering of 650,000, so it would just be the amount above the 250 stop loss gap would be at risk of possibly being paid out. That brings us down to 4.2 million. So if you go back and look at, oops, I went too far. This slide that shows her letter, we were recommended between 3.7 and 4.2, so that puts us right exactly where we need to be.
Miraculously. So we took 1.4 million of our reserves and spent it in our budget, but we used this for our staff for insurance purposes, right? So 1.4 million would have been spent out of our budget that we otherwise would have had to spend for this to keep.
No, it probably would have been passed on in terms of insurance premium.
Well, what I'd like to think is that we gave an additional salary increase instead of spending it in our budget for that, but.
There's definitely value to our employees, obviously, not increasing the premium, so,
Sure,
yeah.
but next year, I'm worried about what's gonna happen.
There's no guarantee.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, by doing it this way, it allowed us to keep
allowed us not
the
to
effect
look
of
at
this
that fund.
increase out of the general budget to allow us to do the increases that we did with the salary plan.
Shame on me.
I'm sorry that was not more clear.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and it's my fault. I should know.
Do we see more employees going with the HSA savings account, healthcare savings?
That's the only thing we offer.
That's the only thing.
We offer, correct.
We used to have that Key Care 200.
That's
plan way
right,
back
Key Care.
when, but it was
Okay,
eliminated.
okay, gotcha. That's right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Susan. Item 3.04, William Byrd High School asbestos abatement plan, Mr. Harley Grimes.
I'm gonna be absent for a few minutes.
You can go throw up.
Yes.
I'll defer to Dr. Nicely.
I told Mr. Grimes had a whole long list here. I said I would introduce this. So if you guys want to come up. So I want to thank Troy Smith and Mark Bradford for being here from Avis. As you know, in the course of the renovation at William Byrd High School, some asbestos was discovered, and so they've been working closely with us along with regulatory folks to assess the issue and so forth, and then recommend a plan to how to correct it. So it is quite a bit higher price tag than what we were hoping. And of course, while that's being corrected, that means other things, they're having to kind of redivert, work and so forth. So it's causing some delays with the project, which also adds to our costs. So appreciate you guys being here to help explain that, so.
I don't know if y'all have had an opportunity to review the change proposal, or if y'all have any specific questions. If not, we can just jump into kind of going down line item by line item and explain to our best ability what it all means. And if you have questions along the way, please just jump in and ask as we go, rather than, we operate better that way. So this is a change proposal. We're in the older part of the school where the labs are on the second floor, and I think there's history and language on the first floor. We started demoing in those areas, and when we took the ceilings out, we saw some drywall bulkheads. When we removed some of the drywall bulkheads, we found spray-on fireproofing on at least 3 beams. It's really random. It's not throughout. We don't really understand why it's done like it's done, but obviously it was done. Someone knew it was there. They built drywall bulkheads around it, and this is for those who don't know, this is friable asbestos, which is the bad stuff. You don't want to breathe it and eat it and everything like that. So we basically evacuated that wing. We closed it off. We got OSHA involved. The school got their consultant involved. We've done air tests. We've got an asbestos plan that's been prepared. We priced it per that plan, and those costs are reflected in here. Now, what that does is it means instead of us being able to work in that 2 stories, it's literally, I mean, it's closed off right now completely until the abatement starts. So we're anticipating abatement starting the 1st of June. We had to give an OSHA notification, and it's going to take about 4 months for just the abatement. I mean, this is negative air, this is showers, this is respirators, this is major work. After all that's done and we get a clear air sample, then we can go back and start where we were 6 weeks ago when we discovered this and start our work, our demo, and all of our putback. So that's the time impact. So, and as you know, we've got trailers outside in the parking lot. Those can really only be removed in the summer because they bring in tractor trailers and everything else. And if you've been out to William Byrd and seen during a school day, there between the middle school and the high school, there's no extra room for tractor trailers to park to remove trailers. So with that being said, I don't know if that answers time questions or why it will extend the time basically a year.
Just to add one thing, Troy,
yeah.
just to clarify for everybody, the section of the school they're talking about is very classroom intensive. It's that whole wing where the science classrooms are. And so one question we've asked was, do we need all the number of mobile units out there to come? And the answer is yes, just because unfortunately this is the part of the school that it's just all classrooms.
Did you say it would extend the project by an entire year?
Yes.
How long does it take to abate it?
4 months. And then they start their demo, which is where we were starting about 6 weeks ago.
It's gonna take 6 months to demo?
Yeah. It's the labs, it's the lab casework, it's the fume hoods, it's all of that area there that gets demoed. And it's ductwork and it's piping and it's, it gets everything in that area gets rearranged and put back new.
So what are you talking about, the trailers?
So the trailers were supposed to be leaving the end of this month. So they could be taken out this summer. So when school started in August, we would be wrapping up. As it is now, they'll be taken out next summer. Because they need a couple of months just to get the trailers out. I mean, you've got fencing, you've got temporary power, fire alarm, decks, pedestals.
What do we pay for the rent on the trailers?
It's roughly $15,000 a month.
And that's where the cost, it goes up for us because under the contract, that's built in, but because of the extension, that becomes something we have to absorb.
So how much is that?
The trailers?
Yeah,
And
15,000
that's all.
times.
Do you have?
You
You
don't
don't
have the
have?
list?
Yeah, I
Times
don't
10.
So this is
remember.
subcontracted out, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
180,000 for
180?
12 months. At
The
15.
temporary classrooms are $197,902. See where it says temporary classrooms right under tools?
Yeah.
And Troy, you said, I think you meant 6 months to do the project. You didn't mean 6 months to demo.
It will be the demo after the abatement and the clear air
So it
samples
will
come
take
back.
6 months just to demo.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay.
And we've asked, we met with OSHA and Hurt Profit, who is the school's third-party consultant. We had a meeting out there last week. As you may be aware, we're doing an infill area where the new art room will go. and the power and water and everything is fed from this lab area to the new extension. So we're continuing to work on the infill as far as we can go. Travis and Tammy are giving us the admin area the end of this month, as soon as school's out. So we're moving that ahead so we can keep working and keep things moving ahead to mitigate the extension.
So the bottom line is 1.5.
Yes. Now, and we've talked, there are some things, so a comment was made, if you look down here, to store the laboratory casework that's being ready to be delivered, it's $96,000, and Mike was gonna, it has to stay in a conditioned space because it's wood laboratory casework.
We think we
And the
can do
county
that.
was gonna look at,
Our staff's gonna look to see if we have an alternative that we can do, because that'll save $96,000.
Yes.
We don't have the answer to that yet. There's a couple other smaller amounts, like regarding insurance.
Yeah, so-
Peterson to ask that question, but.
yeah, so there's environmental and terrorism insurance, that was part of the construction contract that we were providing. If we don't have to do that for this last piece of the work, then that can be removed. And that's just an insurance requirement that was in the contract that we're providing. That's the cost to extend it for 12 months.
How much was it? I can't see it on there.
$19,191.
Not a lot.
Then there's builder's risk insurance that we're carrying as a requirement of the contract. 75% of the school's been turned over, and Roanoke County Schools is occupying it. If y'all already have insurance on the building, y'all have never not had insurance on the building. If that's something y'all can get a rider to your policy and keep us from having to provide, that's another $22,000. And then the project is bonded, and for us to extend our bond is another $8,580. I don't know if you can get rid of requiring us to have a bond, but we've got that cost figured. If that's something we don't have to do, that goes back to.
Ken, and nothing against you guys, because if this were my private business, I would be getting some estimates. If somebody tells me $1.5 million, I may want to go out and look and see if I can find, other prices. Are we bound by the contract to solely use you guys for that? Do you know that question?
No, we had a decision point, to try to answer your question. We could have said, hey, you guys, stop what you're doing, we're gonna take care of this on our own, and so forth. We felt like it was a better move to, work this through Avis, just because of coordinating everything and so forth. It seemed like that would actually give us the best shot of keeping the project moving forward as best we could. So we could have done that differently, but this was a.
Well, obviously, I know it would be easier just to say, go ahead and move forward, but I think when we're talking about this kind of money, and we're already talking about a year before we can even get really anything out of it.
But could have
Well,
delayed
the-
even more.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but
If
the
you
only
brought
cost that would
somebody
have.
outside. I don't
Or it
know.
might be less.
But the only cost that would have gone down, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, would be that top number.
You mean
you
they could
scroll
do
that-
it less than a year?
Yeah, so the
No, what
total
I'm saying
change
is-
proposal.
It could be less than 1.5. What's
Yeah.
the harm in getting an estimate, is what I'm saying.
And so, Mr. Hudson, if you look at the whole change proposal, it's like 78 pages with all the backup.
Sure.
And
I'm
the-
just,
And the abatement quote, if you look at their estimate, it is a time and materials with a not to exceed. So that's worst case. So any money they don't spend of that goes back, is credited back.
I understand. I just feel like if I'm responsible to be a good steward of tax dollars, I'm not just going to rubber stamp $1.5 million without looking into other options first. I don't know how long it would take to get some estimates on something like that. If it's a ridiculous amount of time, then obviously time is money.
But to answer your question, and correct me if I'm wrong, the part that you'd be looking at would be just that abatement piece. The rest of it's built in.
Right.
Regardless of who does that work.
Right,
So it's a 450,000.
right.
Yeah, and your third-party consultant, Hurt and Profit, is on-site monitoring their work, ensuring they're not, it's a checks and balances. So Hurt and Profit will be on-site, making sure they're doing it the right way and not billing for extra things and being frivolous. And that's Hurt and Profit works for you guys, not us, and they'll be on-site the whole time this abatement is taking place.
It's amazing how the abatement is at nearly $500,000, but then we have another $1 million just in costs. That's just, I mean.
Well, it's
self-
because it's delaying everything. $15,000 a month for trailers, 90-some thousand dollars to store some
But
wood.
that's, that,
And y'all haven't
What,
hit,
if I may ask, the Hughes and Associates extending CA for 6 months? What is that?
So we have biweekly owner meetings on site, and they come to those. There's always design issues or things that come up that want to be changed, and they're there to help work through that. So that is Hughes and Associates and their MEP consultant, Ascend Engineering.
Will they need to come during the abatement? There won't be anything being done during
No,
that time,
this
will
is
there?
just the extension, because they're already there through August. They've already figured in their contract being there through August of this year. This is to extend it for 12 more months. And I can't remember how much time it was for them.
It's $9,600 a month for
But the
6
time, it's
months.
six months for
6
them.
months.
So they're not there in the summer watching the trailers getting taken out kind of thing. They're just there until probably the end of next school year.
y'all haven't hit on the question I had yesterday, which was, how do we not look for asbestos in pre-construction for a school in 1970 or 71? So, and the answer is, and I'll let Troy, I don't remember the names, but apparently this was on our side. We have some kind of,
A hair up report,
what's
a hair up.
hair report that really doesn't, I mean, they come in and they look at this room and they say, well, I don't see anything that would be asbestos related. As opposed to, and now we know for Cove and Cundiff, they're same time frame. We need to take a few of these tiles back and stick our heads up in there and look around. Because obviously, why do you do a drop ceiling? There's stuff above it, right? So we didn't do that, and now we're paying the price.
The asbestos report that was in the original RFP did not identify any of these areas as being
Right.
hot for asbestos.
So my point is, the cost of this project, while it would have been much cheaper to have known this and included it in up front, I can't help but say this, it's partly our fault. So that's, to me, the
Because you
worst
could have
part about
gone in and
this.
abated it from the
Absolutely.
very
Well,
beginning.
at least you'd
We've
have,
been in the cost.
right, it
That's
would
what
have been a
it
much
been.
cheaper,
Would have been in the contract.
you'd have had
Yeah.
to still do it.
So just moving forward for our next two big projects with whomever picks those up, are we gonna put an abatement clause in there and make it larger? I mean, or is there some
We're really
kind
to do the more extensive testing for these renovations.
well, it sounds like it's kind of you're only as good as your inspector.
So there's two levels of reporting. There's a HERA report and a NESHAP report. And the NESHAP is much more involved, and they go in and they take out ceiling tiles, and they really do a much more thorough job. And yesterday Harley and Mike were talking that's what they're gonna get done for the two elementary schools.
Nisha,
NESHAP,
You might as well guarantee it's in there.
spell it for me so I can look it
Yeah,
up.
well,
NISH.
and we don't want to hear about asbestos. you know.
NESHPA.
It's in the cost, everything.
What's our contingency?
But you said this was behind drywall? I mean, you
So
probably
there
wouldn't have
was a
seen
drywall-
this.
There was a drywall bulkhead built around these beams that had the spray-on fireproofing. And then some of the overspray from the fireproofing is on the ductwork and the bar joist and the piping. And all of it had, so imagine if you will, on that, the 2 stories of that entire wing, every square inch has to get wiped down and be clear of asbestos, and Herc and Profit has to sign off on it. And then do an air test that none of it's in the air. I mean, literally every square inch. In the ceiling, on the floor, like inside the cabinets, everything.
Would the NESHAP testing, assessment, inspection, whatever it's called, would that have picked up if they had used NESHAP?
Yeah, it should have,
It
yes,
should.
it should have.
Should have.
So they would go into that bulkhead.
But it was in the
to test
bulkhead.
They would definitely see a bulkhead and say, should we go in here and make sure that there's no friable,
Gotcha.
spray on
Okay,
fire.
so there would have been
behind it.
some question marks to the bulkhead,
Yes.
and which would have made
It
them.
would have flagged the issue.
Okay.
Mr. Hudson, one concern I would have with trying to get another quote is we delay that even longer, and then we rent trailers even longer. I mean, they've done a fantastic job over there to date. I don't know why we would delay anymore and further potentially delay this project, personally.
The one
I
question.
do say
I know you-
455,000 is,
I mean, I'm not in the construction business, and if you guys want to move forward with just rubber stamping it, that's fine. I'm just.
how long would it take to get another quote?
I'd say you're probably looking at 2 to 4 weeks at a minimum.
And one question about the air quality, that would be throughout construction area and the school? Would
That's
it-
in the
would it
area where it's
involve-
being
Would it
abated.
involve any of the school, like when we're getting ready to go back for the school year?
Yeah, so you'll have a clear air test before school starts back up. Because they're gonna, so the area where the abatement would occur is completely sealed off. And then, I mean, the workers that go in, put on their respirators,
affect
put on
the
their
students.
suits. There's no students, there won't
It
be any
wouldn't
students
affect-
there because we're starting June 1.
Yeah, but then if we can abate, make sure the air quality,
Then when they come back, it'll be clear.
and,
When kids come back in August, it would be
yeah,
clear.
you don't want to get into that, where you're stirring the air up and they're coming back.
Well, I mean, I guess the only concern I have is our budget's pretty tight.
So to
Where are
Mr.
we gonna find it?
Ms.
Where is
Peterson
she?
has those numbers.
Oh, there she is.
Have you,
I'm used to her sitting there, I was looking.
before we go there,
Hold on, I think Mr. Greenway has something he'd like to say.
Just real quick, to Mr. Hudson's point, wow, you know what I think of the work y'all done has been amazing.
K-Spring.
K-Spring was just absolutely, yeah, and it's not just because it's.
But of
birth,
course, they
right?
gutted it, so.
But to Mr. Hudson's point, correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we did get another quote, took the 2 to 4 weeks to get that, we're looking at, if what we said yesterday, we're looking at finishing around March anyway. We have the 2 to 4 weeks, right? I mean, would that potentially?
My biggest concern for me is starting if we start June 1, we have it done, abated, and a clear air test before kids come back in August. If we delay it a month and we don't start till July 1, while we're getting additional pricing, then all of a sudden we're kind of in the throes of it when kids are coming back.
But the only place we're abating is that wing, right?
It's the-
Now, we don't have to go out into the rest of the school to do it.
Correct.
So we've already removed those kids from that wing.
Right, but, so all the dumpsters and all the showers and all the stuff that's going out will be going out the back towards the trailers.
Okay.
And kids are out there.
Okay.
I mean, what would you do if you did have a air
Oh,
quality and something happened and you're starting back to school, you shut down?
Yeah,
You gotta shut down.
yeah.
That's the only thing I was thinking, I mean, you know,
So it's a.
if
Have
we
you-
delay,
have you guys used Alloy Group before for the
Yeah,
abatement?
they've been the demo sub on the project all along, and they are also asbestos certified to do abatement and removal. And we've worked with them before, they're a good group. And again, you've got Hurt and Profit, who's your sub, who's on site monitoring everything they do. And Hurt and Profit doesn't work for us, but they have full access the whole time the abatement's going on to be in there watching. And their representative was there with OSHA when we had our meeting, was it last week or 2 weeks ago, and walking around and making sure Alloy understood their plan and how they saw it happening and how the air samples are gonna happen. I mean, so it's pretty intense. I mean, as you can imagine, for $1.5 million.
From a student safety standpoint,
Oh, I get it,
I
yeah.
think,
you wanna hear from Susan?
back in September, we had some options
I mean,
on how to spend money, but I
the
don't see
mon-
an option.
Where's the money?
So if you pull up your capital reserves report,
Okay,
and you flip to the last page, you will see we have a general ledger balance of May 4th for all of the different reserve pockets that we have. If you move down to pending items, the first line is for $2 million, and that is an amount that we set aside out of major capital to go into Burton Center through our CIP for next year. So that is unavailable. The next line is how I recommend we pay for this $1.5 million. We use $856,313.17 from minor capital reserves. We use $35,575.26 from the CMP reserves. we used $447,505.32 out of your major capital reserves, which will bring that to zero. You used $167,706.31 out of the remaining William Byrd High Construction Contingency Reserve. So doing all of this, there are a couple of other projects on this list. If we do the other projects as well, it will leave Roanoke County Public Schools with $33,463.87 in CMP reserves to use for anything
Well,
else.
I think that answers the question right there for any other projects. And that's what I mean.
Yep,
You talking about the CMP fund?
yeah. That's what she says we got left.
That's the only thing you have left.
That's the only thing.
And that is the fund that Mr. Cagle uses for CMP projects. And that would represent where he had set up a CMP project with CMP dollars, and then the budget came in, the actual came in less than budget, and so it went back into CMP.
So you're saying that's what, if we were to do some of these upcoming things here, which clearly are some very expensive things that I'm sure not everybody's gonna give a nod on.
Well, the only thing.
Pending items is what I'm talking about.
The only two things that are on here, and you're yet to hear the information about them, we put mobile classroom installation costs of the $8,377.62 on here, because that has already been spent. So that is a non-negotiable.
Which one, I'm sorry?
The third item, the mobile
3.06.
classroom installation
Those
cost.
were the
gotcha.
mobiles, but the cost was higher than what we had thought.
Expected.
And Mr. Cagle thinks that is the final piece of all of the mobile pieces. The other thing that we put in here, we've got several other capital items on the list. The only other thing that we could afford to do with the remaining dollars is the Burlington Elementary cafeteria floor coating. And this is where the cafeteria floor has become actually holy, if you will. And it is a safety hazard for the staff out there to walk around.
Not wholly in a good way, like sanctified.
So we need to go by there, is that what you're saying?
Well, that's also a good point. That's why if Roanoke County can store the furniture, if the bond is not required, I mean, they may not seem like huge dollars, but they'll add up.
I just want them to
130 or
like a million.
40,000.
So Susan, just to clarify, these pending items here, you're saying that's not including the pending items with the exception of the $8,000?
And the cafeteria flooring. I did not put I listed on
You did
here,
not put with 3.1 and 3.11, because that's almost $500,000.
yeah, 3.10 and 3.11.
That's not included.
Yeah, they're not included.
Okay.
Nor is the Glenboro Elementary roof that is wholly as well.
When does that get replenished?
Next December, when we have year end.
Does that include the CMP? We don't have a CMP transfer in our budget?
The CMP has already been, typically what we do with CMP is, it is scheduled beforehand, because the whole purpose of it is to perform planned maintenance so that stuff doesn't go in disrepair. So we've already set those into projects for Mr. Cagle's. Now, he can always revisit those projects and determine if he needs to allocate those funds.
Zero.
So I'll let you guys decide. You know what I would say. But so if we get 130 or 40 back, how much are these other projects, I guess, Glenver, the roof?
Yeah, those are some things we're gonna have to address just out of operating budget, I mean, just to get it fixed, obviously, but, yeah.
So we're gonna.
When will we know on the storage availability for saving $96,000?
He thinks he can do it. We had Mike in there yesterday.
Yeah, he was gonna check into it, so we won't know, but I mean, and so hopefully some of those costs in terms of that won't be quite as high, but, I mean, this is the top end, I guess, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I think we move forward with this and let them get rolling personally.
I agree.
You give it to Cheryl?
Yeah, I didn't leave it much of an option. It's kind of like when you're a doctor and you go in for surgery. Sometimes you just want to close the patient back up and say a prayer. I mean, I'm sorry, it's just how I go. In the healthcare world, this is what I think of, but.
I hope Cheryl doesn't operate on me.
Close her back up, man.
That's right.
We're
This
done.
guy's gone. Close him up.
All right, we'll just go ahead and put that on the,
It'd be an action item probably for next meeting.
okay.
Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
And if y'all have any other questions afterwards, I mean, feel free to email me or whatever. I'll be happy to answer anything.
You don't have any promo codes or coupons?
If I can find one, I'll let you know.
Appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
I'm not questioning anybody's integrity, it's just
No, I get it. I understand.
responsible for tax dollars.
That's right.
They've been great partners and appreciate it.
All right, item 3.05, surplus request for retired technology equipment, Mr. Jeff Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Nicely. Each year, we request the retirement of aging technology equipment. This year, we have approximately 4,000 devices that consist of laptops, desktops, monitors, printers, mobile devices, Promethean active panels, and other computer accessories. This equipment was previously assigned to administrators, students, and teachers. Now, as part of the surplus process, the state contract vendor Powerhouse Recycling will ensure proper data removal and allow for environmentally friendly destruction of all equipment. They will also pay us for the remaining residual value from the surplus of this equipment. All surplus proceeds have been included in the FY24 budget as a funding source for the technology replacement plan. Staff recommends to surplus the approximately 4,000 retired technology devices and prepare them for sale. Powerhouse Recycling will provide a proof of destruction document for all computer equipment. This includes erasing all data using the Department of Defense standards. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
All right, item 3.06, mobile classroom installation costs, Mr. Harley Grimes.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, board members, Dr. Nicely. Well, as Susan has already alluded to, when the mobile classrooms were installed, we've received additional bills from IES and AEP for costs related to the installations. And, so staff is requesting $8,377.62 be appropriated from minor capital for the mobile classroom installations, and staff recommends this item be added to the consent agenda for the next school board meeting.
Thank you. All right, on to 3.07, Glenver Elementary School roof repair.
Well, also, as Susan alluded to, that a portion of the roof at Glenver Elementary was blown loose in the last windstorm approximately 3 weeks ago. And our CPS maintenance staff has temporarily reattached the roof material, but the material sustained damage as well. And I believe there are photos of that in the board docs. Staff recommends that $100,000 be appropriated from minor capital to replace this one section of the roof. And one of the photos, which I believe is the paper here. It is the GES roof. That's where they made the repairs. You can see the holes that were created, but the GES roof shows the location in the building that they're recommending or requesting that we do the repair for $100,000.
So what I'd like to say is when we get that 100,000 back from storing whatever it is, if we need to replenish, then, and if this is the next highest project on, then let's put it back in minor capital to cover.
I think, yeah, right. I think once we have that information, what I would suggest is we bring this back to you to say, okay, we've
Yep.
got the money now, and this is our highest priority.
Yep.
Did we get more than one quote?
Yes, we get multiple quotes on that. We would have to meet the.
So we haven't received any quotes yet.
So we got time.
We've had our people look at it, and that's what they've said that it would cost to make the repairs. But for a company to come in and actually do the work, that's what our people are estimating, our staff, that it would cost $100,000 to fix that one area.
And the gym floor, I know it got damaged when there were some plumbing issues. Is that related to the roof at all?
Now, are we
You talking
talking?
about Glenver Elementary?
Or Green
Yeah.
Valley?
Oh, sorry, my
Yeah,
bad.
Green Valley.
I was like, I didn't know that.
Green Valley, Glenver, yeah.
So y'all didn't tell me the floor got messed up.
Yeah, but I would like to information on that, so, we can talk about that later, I guess.
Sure.
off camera.
We did the
Yeah, there was the
When-
gym floor.
wind do that much damage?
Yes. If there's a section of the roof that is starting to pull away, and then especially if we have a wind event and it gets underneath it, it just starts ripping it. So where it has been, Chuck, if you'll go to one of the other photos.
Those flat roofs are expensive.
And they leak.
Yes.
But how do you build a building that big? Big,
them
you
all.
can't.
With this photo, you can see there are mechanical attachments underneath, and that rubber membrane is attached to the top of that. And so with the wind pulling it off, then where that rubber attached to that mechanical device to hold the insulation down, then it rips like a scab when the wind pulls the membrane. And of course, that roof is already beyond the expected life. Because if you look at I'll say a 20-year roof, you'll be fortunate to get 10 to 12 years out of that roof.
You said it was the windstorm that damaged it. Is there, no insurance will cover that because it's out of date?
That, I don't have that information, but we can check into it.
It does your house, but I don't know about what we have.
Well, I'll have to get that information for you.
Is the roof actively leaking now?
They've made the repairs. I don't know if the last rainstorm that we had anything reported. But we do know it's just a temporary patch until we can get it fixed or replaced permanently.
All right.
I think what we're going to do is, keep this up as a high priority, and obviously, if we get the funds back, bring it back to you.
All right. Item 3.08, Penn Forest Elementary School Water Authority easement request.
Yes, the Western Virginia Water Authority has requested an easement to allow replacement of the sanitary sewer lines along the perimeter of the property at Penn Forest Elementary School. You can see the green lines are the proposed areas for the trenching of the sewer line. There is one section which, for a temporary easement, you can see in red that is where they will do some cross-sectional boring. The idea or the plan is that this will be done. One entrance will have to be blocked off for a length of time, but the second entrance will not be blocked.
And
So,
that's pavement? Is that asphalt?
no, that's actually in the grassy area on the property.
Okay.
So staff will work with Western Virginia Water Authority to ensure minimal impact on school operations, and staff is recommending approval of the easement request. Staff recommends that this request be placed on the consent agenda for the next board meeting.
How long will it take?
That, I believe they are trying to get that done during the summer.
It'll be done before school.
I cannot confirm that's the date.
Okay.
We put Mr. Grimes on the questioning seat today, but that's why Mr. Kangles put this out ahead of time too. So, if we don't know something, we'll get back to you on it.
Well, it would be good if the county would step up and say, we need to get this done so that school can go back to normal operation.
I didn't know the county oversaw the water authority.
Yeah, I mean, the water authority.
Okay.
But yeah,
But the permitting's just as bad, trust me.
that's water.
Who runs what?
No.
Oh, you're right. The localities.
Mr. Chairman, so what I'm hearing is the consent agenda from May 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
3.09, Burlington Elementary School cafeteria floor coating replacement.
Yes, Susan brought this up earlier, and the vinyl coating on the floor in the kitchen has delaminated from the substructure, which you can see the pictures, underneath the mat. That area has pulled up. Large portions of the floor covering are missing, which lead to both sanitary and safety concerns. Staff recommends appropriating $20,000 from minor capital to remove the existing floor covering and replace it with new material. And again, staff recommends that this request be placed on the consent agenda for the next board meeting.
Is that a terrazzo floor?
No, it is an epoxy-based floor. And Chuck, can you go to the next picture?
Is there a cheaper option? I didn't ask Todd, but I mean,
In the cafeterias, it's one of the harshest environments that you can have. If you try to put a VCT floor, then that's going to pull up because of water and other things in that space. Epoxy does last a lot longer, and now you do have to remove all the equipment out of the space. And so this amount does include having a contractor to remove the equipment and then get everything clean so that everything will adhere to the substrate.
What's the square footage?
The square footage I'm not privy to at this moment, but we can get that back to you.
If I can add a point of clarification, when I scheduled out the Woodward High abatement plan, I did drop the cafeteria coating in under CMP. It's already there. And so if that's how you desire to move forward, we'll just change the consent agenda item to reflect CMP as opposed to minor capital reserves.
Okay.
Got to spend a little money in the Hollins district.
They're gonna be happy with you.
Is there consensus to move forward?
I believe so, because it's a safety issue. I mean, I don't think we can get around that. I mean, I don't want somebody falling and getting hurt. That's,
Right. I think just from a health standpoint, being in the kitchen, it's,
It's gonna continue to come up.
yes, sir.
27 aging buildings.
That's right, they're not getting any newer.
3.11.
3.10?
All right. 3.10, Burlington Elementary School mobile classroom.
Burlington Elementary School has requested a mobile classroom unit, and that's their request that you see on the screen there. We have researched availability of used modular classrooms. We have been unable to locate any used modular classrooms of similar size to the units recently installed at other RCPS schools. There is one extra large used unit, which is 28 feet by 70 feet, and it is available for $139,888. And that does not include the utilities, or the infrastructure, which would be $45,000.
And it should be ready in about a year.
Now,
Trust me,
So,
trust me.
quick question, Ken, in regards to, do we have any special programs? I know at not each school, but we have like special programs where we have kids from other districts that are coming in for special services.
Oh,
Do
is
we
there any
E
have that at
Burlington?
Burlington?
Yeah, she has two fax classes.
Does she? So are they pulling from other schools?
Now that I would think so, wouldn't she, Janice?
Yes, and they also have 2 preschool programs
That's right.
there as well.
So a question I would have to mitigate this until we can get the money, is it possible that we move one of those programs to another facility in the county that we have some space?
Like Bonsai, where we're not using the.
Right. Where that way we could move some kids out into another school that has the space to give her more space instead of spending $200,000 on a.
I'll ask them to look at that. I don't know the answer to that. We could certainly evaluate that.
Good idea.
It's a great idea.
It is.
And be able
I have one every
to
now
determine how
and
many
It's a great
kids
idea.
Every once
You're
in
so
a while.
special.
Right. Yeah, if you're Dr. McCly, one thing you probably want to know
We
is,
have students in that building who are Glenver students, so we'll look at the number of students who are Burlington kids already, and then look to see if there's space to move.
right. I would, that's a great question, and we'll look at that. I know they're kind of bursting at the seams in terms of just remediation kind of things, which is,
I should know the answer to this, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. This is gonna sound a little silly. We've lost 1,000 students over the last decade. We're asking to renovate these schools, but shouldn't we have plenty of room since that's happening? And yet we've got trailers at, what, 5 or 6 of the elementary schools now? Is it?
great question. I actually wrote this nice little document about that for the Board of Supervisors when they ask those questions. It's a great question to answer, right? It's a legitimate one. I would just say two things. One, when your enrollment's going down, it's not going down in pockets. It's going down uniformly, across schools, across grade levels. So you don't always get that sort of.
That doesn't, I don't think that would answer the, and I'm not, because I'm putting you on the spot.
That's okay, but the second piece of that is, over those 10 years, the requirements and the programs and the needs, not just special education related, but I would certainly point to that. The remediation efforts and all that, I mean, those continue to have.
But our
just exploded.
counterparts on the other side need to understand, we're just not out here with schools half empty, if that,
That's right.
and that we've got, we're using trailers, learning cottages, whatever
Right.
at 5 or 6 elementary schools.
Wait, and you're exactly right. That's one thing we'd love for people to understand better is what our schools have to do and what they do now in 2023. I mean, even compared to 10, much less 20 years ago. I mean, it's incredible, the difference. And you're exactly right. That gets lost in translation, I think, when people think about those kinds of things.
And they're being utilized full time.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
like you say, it may be numbers, but it's not like, okay, it's in this
They're
area.
just
that's all.
sticking them out there for fun.
Well, you even mentioned Bonsack, where there definitely was some space that the two, is it REAP or PEEP?
We have the preschool autism program, so we've
Right.
expanded that next year.
Those are expansion programs, not, because you had asked the question, did those get moved from someplace else? Those are actually expansion programs.
So,
Try
but
to
it's
meet
just
the need.
one additional class, right? That's 20 kids. I'm
But one or
assuming.
two?
There's two, but it's one additional. They
Oh, one
already have
additional.
one, we're adding a new.
Gotcha.
So we were at 300 students last year at Bonsack. Now we'll be around 320. And so I guess to Mr. Hudson's point, it's a great question. I don't know if we've got another one.
And there may be some additional space there. I think you'd want to find out, those classes at Burlington, how many, to what extent are they serving students who are not at Burlington?
Yes.
You probably don't want to.
Oh, no,
Let's get
I'm
some
not
Burlington
suggesting.
there. Right.
I know the answer. I'm just suggesting that's a good option.
Now, there was another option that we had on our information, and that was for a new unit. The first one, which was larger than what we would typically have, was for the 139, we'll say 140, 140,000 round numbers. But a new unit similar in size to the units installed at Fort Lewis, Cundiff, and the other schools was 168,760. And that was for one that was 24 feet by 60 feet. And so comparing a new one versus a used one, and knowing that we had to spend a lot of time and effort in getting those used ones operational. So that, and we have concerns that the extra large unit would not fit in the location at Burlington. And so our recommendation is to proceed with installation of a new modular unit pending the availability of funding.
And of course, stating the obvious, this information is going to change by the time we can actually afford to do this. Maybe there'll be other options.
And July 1, July 1, even though we'd like to wait until we get the audited numbers back, we do replenish our CMP, minor capital and major capital, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it become available in November, December, right?
But July 1st
Yes.
numbers, yeah. So we will have them.
What location was that gonna be?
That was at Burlington.
No, I know that. Where on the campus?
We were looking at the area between the school and the ball fields. There's an asphalt area that had been used for games, as part of PE, but that area is not used for much of anything now. So the idea was to be able to get whatever structure the decision's made to use, to put it in there and set it up on that asphalt pad.
Near the parking lot.
No, sir, at the back of the school, next to the playground.
Is it fenced?
The area is fenced, yes.
So this unit would be inside that fence?
Correct.
Okay, next one.
Good.
All right. Item 3.11, playground shade structures.
As requested by the board, staff has researched playground shade structures and has estimated the cost at approximately $15,000 per playground. The total cost of the project is provided one shade structure at each elementary school would be approximately $255,000, including contingencies. The current minor capital balance, I know that's changed from earlier discussions tonight. So I will say, due to updated pricing and additional items that have been requested, the balance information originally presented in this agenda item is no longer valid.
All right.
Well,
Mr. Ray?
I might say that, well, certainly we can't afford this, but after we're talking about counting nickels and dimes other places. But what was brought to my attention was when the chairman brought to me, one of the deputies was there and brought it to attention at Clearbrook, and these kids were up against the wall trying to get into shade. Now, we've been fortunate, we've had cooler weather. And we come back when it's hot weather. But, I mean, I don't want to dumb down anything, but, is it possible that, maybe we could start looking at this on either a one-by-one basis, or maybe is it feasible to put up a little shed roof or something, or, I don't know.
Well, the Clearbrook area that you were mentioning, there are some large trees there, so depending on the time of the year, there will be some shade from those trees. Now, there is enough space that if it was so chosen to add a structure, that you could put something there. As a matter of fact, I believe there is a picnic area very close to that playground area.
Yeah, I know. Well, the deputy brought it up to,
Yeah.
Yes, he sent me a picture, and there was a pile of kids sitting in a little shade area about the size of this table. So, I mean, I think it's a definite situation where we need to look into something at some point.
yeah, I'm not saying, definitely we're not gonna expend that kind of money, but is it something that we can look at, maybe an alternative to something?
And there are some of the playgrounds that have canopies or even a topper for some of the platforms. So there is shade built in through those. We know that at Oak Grove, that there was a shade structure added to their original playground equipment through a grant from the Dermatology Association. And then with this new playground that was added, they were able to apply for a grant, and they were able to get some shades that were incorporated into the new play equipment.
Yeah, so that would be my suggestion, is that we look into that further. I know the kids do start the school year, and it is kind of hot in August because we start so dang early. But they're finished in May, and really we've had some beautiful weather. It's probably really, really hot for a couple weeks. And they're only out there for 20 minutes or so. But
Yeah,
if we
well,
could get
I'm going on what was given to me.
I know.
It wasn't the principal, it was,
Yeah.
and this is what came to me as far as that's concerned. And yes, I think looking into any
Grants would
grants,
be
something
great,
that
yeah.
maybe we could go in the future and say, hey, we need to do these things, so.
I think you're right to look at alternatives. I'm not sure if the answer is to provide shade. I mean, we want kids moving, obviously, during the recess. And I'm not sure that, congregating at the top of these slides under that little thing is really the answer. So I think looking at some other options might be
It may be.
wise.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, 3.12, surplus request.
All right, well, staff has requested permission to surplus the following items. We have a 2001 Mack dump truck with 50,427 miles. This truck requires a CDL, and most of our maintenance department is not qualified to drive this truck. The proceeds from surplus would be used towards replacement of this truck with a smaller dump truck which can be driven by maintenance workers without a CDL. We also have a boom lift, which is a Genie brand. This is an electric battery-powered lift. The lift is not currently operable, and it is not economically feasible to repair it. This lift is being replaced. We have two F-250 Super Duty pickup trucks that these trucks were returned to us from Parks and Recreation at the conclusion of their mowing contract. These vehicles are currently assigned to daily use by our maintenance supervisors, and these large trucks are not ideal as daily drivers. And vehicles of this size are not needed in their role. The proceeds will be used to purchase smaller, more efficient trucks for our maintenance department. So staff recommends that this surplus request be added to the consent agenda for the next school board meeting.
Good to me.
All right. Item 3.13, declaring Pogue Farm as surplus.
And I don't have much information on this one.
I'll take this.
Okay.
We're just bringing this back up, for the board's discussion. We've discussed the property that we own, the school board owns out on 221, which is the Pogue Farm property. Of course, that's been leased, out to the family for quite some time. And obviously, we're looking for ways to generate some funds, to pay for other priorities. And so what we've done, Mr. Kagos has reached out to the county purchasing department. And so the steps, if you want to pursue selling the property, the first thing you have to do under the Code of Virginia is declare it surplus. And that requires you taking action. You actually have to have a public hearing to do that first. So if you want to proceed with this, we would need to schedule a public hearing for that, likely on our May 16th meeting. After you've had that public hearing, then you can take action to actually declare it surplus. At that time, we would pursue, services of a, commercial realtor to, pursue selling the property. Under Virginia code, once you declare something surplus, it is up to, in our case, the Board of Supervisors to grant what would be our request to actually retain those funds, versus reverting back to the county. So I have reached out to the county administrator to ask that question to make sure that would not be an issue.
And then we could use that in CMP or minor capital or whatever, if they allow.
Sure.
Does that have to go through discussion with them where we put that money?
Exactly.
That's my question.
Yeah, like in terms of if they agreed to let us keep it, would there be
Well, we purchased the land, right? So it's ours.
Well, but it all reverts back to the county.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which,
That's a Code of Virginia thing.
It's a Code of Virginia? Okay.
How much
Purchased
note-
with their money,
Yeah.
technically.
Technically.
But they earmarked toward
How
us.
much,
yeah, our money, but
do we have a month-to-month lease, or do you know?
We discussed that recently, and I forget the details, Mr. Ray. I'm sorry to bring that with us. I don't remember the details.
Okay.
We'd have to obviously reach out to the family.
Thought we went month to month, was the decision that we made,
because we haven't renewed it.
because we haven't renewed it. 'Cause we
I think
didn't
that's
ever do it.
probably
think
the
it-
sort of
yeah.
understanding.
That was my,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what we discussed, that we didn't renew it, so it just month to month, so we wouldn't have to give a 6 months notice that, hey, we're gonna,
Right.
sell the property or?
Honestly, you'd have to probably defer back to the lease to see what notice is required. I
We
mean,
did.
because even if it's month to month, I would, and again, this is an attorney question.
Well,
Well, the
if you,
lease had
you don't have a
expired.
lease.
Yeah, I think it's month to month now, because.
The lease had
Yeah,
expired.
and if you months to month,
There's not one currently in effect.
Yeah.
I think, per se.
right.
That's why all this kind of, I felt, came to light, because of that lease had expired. And then, just to clarify, once we do, if we are offered a price, we get to decide whether or not it's a good price.
Well, I think we established.
And the
a price
latest
we
appraisal,
sell it for.
I guess the latest appraisal wasn't,
What they have asked for.
Wasn't great.
no, it wasn't great.
No,
But
you
it
can't
didn't-
talk about it, but it wasn't great.
But didn't know we had something
Right.
happening.
Cut your mic
And Tim,
off.
to your point as to
No,
where
I'm
that
just
money
kidding.
goes, I mean, we need money in CIP, we need money in CMP, we need money everywhere, so I don't know that it's gonna matter too
I
much.
think it's key that we find out from the Board of Supervisors if they're gonna allow us to use that for CMP or, for our maintenance. I mean, really, because it does revert back if we don't.
Oh, right, CIP could apply toward the, elementary schools, for example, probably, could need some more funds there, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So would the consensus be to move forward with
Please.
that?
Yes.
So what we'll do is at the next meeting, we'll schedule the public hearing. What I'll do is clarify with our legal counsel and with county procurement whether we can do both at the same night. In other words, can we do the public hearing and then you also take action that same night, and, assuming there's, of course, you vote. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
And make sure the leases doesn't have something buried in there that
Right.
we have to give a
The
extended notice.
the
or
45-day number has come up if Mr. Grimes back. We're not sure exactly, to your point. We didn't check that out yet.
something.
sir.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Item 3.14, discussion of school board committees. I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Fasciani, because this was her venture.
Yeah,
and-
so there's a lot of other divisions that have a process for putting in place different committees. So I don't know, did you bring it up or did you give it to Chuck to put up there or no?
No, I did not.
Okay, so anyway, long and short of it is the school board has been provided with the policy from another division and had the opportunity to glance over it. And the purpose of this committee making policy, it's basically policy in order to form and dissolve committees. And the point of it is that as you see a need for different committees to arise, you can formulate them, and you have to have a procedure in place. So I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. Have you? Okay. In July, you would, in a meeting, go ahead and establish who would serve on what committees and what committees were needed. And some examples of those committees would be a policy committee, and it's a committee made up of school board members. And that's really a intergovernance policy committee. The next one is a finance committee. What's the third one?
Facilities, budget,
facilities.
finance, intergovernmental affairs.
And intergovernmental affairs is kind of your policy committee. So at any given time, a committee can be created based on the need, and a committee can be dissolved based on the need. And there's a protocol in place on how you do that. So we haven't had that in the past. The reason why I brought it forth is I think it's an effective and efficient way to create we can't, the only time we get together is here. Because as a school board, if you have 3 people, it's considered a meeting. It has to be public. And the point of serving in a role like we do is to keep things public. It has to be public. So another way we have to do things is by one person calling somebody, hey, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? And there's a lot of back and forth, and it takes time. So and Brent, as being the chair right now, it takes a lot of those responsibilities are put on that one person for all those different categories. So by breaking it up, it kind of has us a way to divide and conquer and to create some responsibility. And then those people in that committee are responsible for talking to those other people when those issues come up. So I hope everybody is interested in it. I think it's an excellent policy. And I think it just gives us, once again, an opportunity to be more effective and efficient in how we serve on our school board for our constituents.
So I'm trying to understand that, you know, that the committees, they would not make decisions. It would still come back to the,
Yeah.
to the board to make these decisions. They're just, and let me get it right, they're honing it down, if that's a good word.
And they would meet in a
I mean,
public setting.
let's take one, for example, what it might be, policy or whatever you want to take. it.
Intergovernance, yeah.
Our governance, and so there's a policy that needs to be changed, or that may need to be changed, or that, so a committee of who?
The board would decide who would serve on that committee. So it would be two people within our school board
Two
who
school
would be
board
assigned
members,
to that committee.
two school board members, and then anyone else?
Well, we would meet with Ken and Rhonda and anybody else from staff as we are going through and implementing and discussing things. So it would be in a public setting. So that would be.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The next question was who, how do you,
It would be as a, like we met the other day to discuss some policies, right? So that would therefore be more out in the public can hear the conversation going back and forth regarding certain policies and could then, if they wanted to, have input.
yeah, I'm just trying to grasp
read it,
the
Mike?
whole
Did you
concept. Yeah, I'm just
see it?
trying to, the whole concept of two people, and they're bringing it forward, so then they have to explain it to us, to the rest of the board, in order to get, you know, a majority to agree to any changes.
Just it creates an avenue for streamlining things so that as things are evolving, there's two people that are kind of working things. You know, we got about 15 policies the other day to go through. Not everybody went through all of them, probably. And that one person could therefore kind of interpret some of the goings-on and then report back and be a point of contact, answer questions, kind of brainstorm. And then go back and say, okay, well, this is what I would think, and this is what, you know, you may want to be interested in.
So they would come back with a summary, and are they going to be at public meeting, but it's not going to be on camera? It's just going to be
No,
on.
we wouldn't need Chuck to record
I
it.
want to understand what that was going to be.
No, I mean, we're really not even obligated to record these meetings. They're public meetings.
Well, when we chose to, and that was.
Yeah, I'm okay with it,
That was a
but-
good point,
Yeah.
you know, when we did. I
Well,
think,
I'll speak to Cheryl's point here. So I reached out to a member of the Bedford School Board and asked, do you feel it's a positive thing, a negative thing? Is it's not prohibiting staff, or is it, you know, kind of helping things move along quicker with boards? And this individual that sits on that board had nothing but good things to say about it. That basically it streamlined things, like Cheryl said, to where, and we'll use policy for example. You know, if you've got a 20-page policy, you've got two people, you know, two board members sitting there with staff. They're going to have a good grasp of what that policy entails and be able to come back and explain that and the reasons why, instead of leaving that burden totally on our staff, to be able to work things out quicker in work sessions where people aren't being really put right on the spot, you know, getting hammered with questions. Because a lot of times, well, just like the first policy, when the three folks were up here in regards to that wellness policy, it probably was pretty stressful for those three people to be sitting up there answering those questions, to where if we had two people from the board that had, you know, prior worked this stuff out, then we really wouldn't be putting the staff on the spot, because we would kind of have things worked out before we would get to the point of voting on it.
is it more advantageous? I know we as a board, we work together pretty good. I mean, we don't have a lot of controversy. Is it better when a board that doesn't get along with situations, and maybe it works better for them? I don't know. I mean, does Bedford get?
I can't answer to that. I don't watch Bedford's board meetings.
They have 9 board members over there, so I understand where it could be a little more difficult for them to coordinate amongst all 9. When we have 5 board members, it's not as much communication needed, but yeah,
It would be a nice policy in place because it would be more effective and efficient. And right now, it's one person who's calling everybody and getting things. And there's a lot of things that I think need to be out in the open that should be made more public. And
That's why we
And
do
you're confident
that's
that
why
the
we do the meetings.
transparency, if those meetings which are not televised is going to be
people can
as
just,
transparent.
yeah, well, more transparent than a phone call. And more transparent than sitting in someone's boardroom, yeah, without a doubt. In addition to that, you don't have to record your meetings, but it's public and people can attend the meetings. It's still considered a public meeting.
What if we were to try one and just give it, that would be a way to,
Yeah, so you don't have to, really what it is, Tim, is you're putting a policy in place that says you can make a committee.
well, that's what I'm
it.
saying. If we
Yeah.
tried one,
So you don't
then-
have to make all three committees, it's just a policy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
would
if we
agree.
do a policy committee, which I do think would save a vast amount of time for us understanding, and maybe sometimes we do, I don't want to say we rubber stamp, but, it's hard to read all those policies.
You mean try to do one, that's what you're suggesting, do one and try
Yeah,
that
it, And let's
policy
see how that.
and see if
committee
that
goes.
works out and then go on
And
to
it might
the
have
other ones.
validity to move on to the next one, or
So essentially, put a policy in place to be able to form the committee, like you're stating. That's correct, right?
A policy committee.
Well, I guess, would you want to limit it to saying you have a right to form a committee or a right to form, or the school board has the?
Well, I think a suggestion was, he said, let's try it with a policy committee.
Yeah, but trying it and creating a policy is two separate things. So what I'm getting at is, do you want to make a policy where, because again, it's going to take a majority to form a committee. It's not like I can come in and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and form this committee today, or David and
Yeah.
I couldn't come in and say that. It would be three of us that would have to come in and say, hey, we feel like it'd be advantageous to create a finance committee for the next year to look at, infrastructure or whatever things that we're facing. Obviously facilities comes to mind because we're always talking about facilities and all the different issues. Like the Glenver roof thing or all these different, the floorings. Like, I couldn't speak to all of that stuff as a whole because I'm not going out to Green Valley and looking at the gym floor or Burlington or all these other issues. So I think it'd be advantageous to create a policy to where the board itself can create these subcommittees. And then if, like Mr. Greenway said, if we want to form one for policy, then we can use that policy that we've created to form that subcommittee. But then instead of having to go back and rewrite the policy to form a committee, because if we write it saying that we're going to form just basically have the right to form a policy committee, then we're going to have to go back and change that if we do find it advantageous later.
Yeah, so I think that the terminology that's confusing here is there's two words and it's policy. So it's like policy within policy, but really, I think what Brent's saying, and I agree with you, is the policy of Bedford's written is fantastic. I think it's excellent. I've looked at it multiple times. So they have a policy that states that they can form these committees, and these are how they form these committees, and these are how the committees are created and dissolved. So once that committee meets their task, and if it's not needed, the committee is not there. So it's just basically it's a policy that says we can create committees. And then within that group of committees, which ones they can create, there's, I think, 4 different ones listed. Intergovernance, which would be, your policies, basically. Finance, facilities. I can't remember the other one. You have it? Oh, I can't remember that, forgetting that one. So you don't always have to have those committees in place. It's just as needed.
That was the word you said, can. We
Yeah.
can establish those.
Yes.
We
yes.
have established committees in the past, though. Our
you've-
parent safety,
It's a different type of committee.
and are those different than
Yeah,
we
because that's.
established the committee?
Because you're working with folks within the community that are serving on these committees. This is just a school board. These are 2 school board members that are working directly with staff. It's completely different. We have our health advisory committee. We all were put on those the other day, but those are we have our CTE, that's a committee, but those are more working with the public. This is different.
And to clarify, it's my understanding too, it's not the point of the board members to dictate to the staff policies, or essentially it's more of an advisory role is kind of what I look at. I mean, obviously the two board members assigned to whatever committee would be speaking with the other three members to gather information to pass that along to the staff, but it wouldn't be the desire of any of us to dictate to them at that level what to do and what not to do. And the two people assigned to that committee, it's not like they have some special authority. It's literally a representation of the board. Everything's going to come back to a vote of 5.
That's right.
So for me, from an informational perspective, I can see where it would be advantageous. Just for, if I were, let's just say I was on the facilities committee, I could come back here and speak to the floor, speak to some of these things and say, guys, we got, this is where we're at. I mean, I kind of feel like it would be a little bit easier than putting all that burden on the staff too, because we can communicate a lot without, like Mr. Cagel's put out that email, and I mean, he's been working his butt off. You got tons of stuff, and it would be easy for me to be able to pick up the phone if we had a need for that committee and give you a concise piece to that.
So you would come back with the information, you wouldn't come back with a recommendation?
Well, I mean, obviously you would have a recommendation.
That's all I'm.
I think obviously anybody would have a recommendation, but with that, working with staff, you would have that recommendation, yes. But I mean, again, it would be up to the 5 board members to come to the conclusion on that recommendation, because we're not always going to agree on things.
And I think they would still highlight it, I would imagine, just like we're doing now, but you would have had some representation from the board in the policy discussion.
And you'd have time to
Not
digest.
speaking for the board, just some board representation.
You'd have more time to ask questions and digest the information, which I think is.
It would, because you wouldn't have Todd in the chair and we're hammering him with 50 questions about each thing. I mean, Harley just got hit with about 10 different questions, to where I feel like we might be able to work some of those questions out before we came and met today. And now some of those questions may need to be public because, like you said, you want the public to be, you want to be transparent, let the public know, this is why we're spending $20,000 on the kitchen floor, because we don't want somebody falling. But
I truly think if you start with a policy just to see how that goes, that would give everybody a little bit of experience to see how that works. Because I do see the one area that I think I would have a little bit of heartburn being led down a path of cohesiveness is on budgetary items, so I think we at least start with the policies and then see where we can build on from there.
So what I'm hearing is you would adopt this policy, and within the policy, just decide to open up, if that's the best word for it, the intergovernance policy for now, and see how that goes, what the need is, and if there's a need for these other groups, then formulate them.
What I would like to do is do the one policy for now, because I think you're gonna have, I mean, we can change this at any point, so that's fine. I mean,
well, I think the biggest question is right now, one, do we adopt a policy that allows the board to do that? And then determine if there is a need at this time to actually form that subcommittee.
That's right.
Because right now, I don't have any knowledge that there needs to be a subcommittee for any of these things that we're talking about. I don't see anything wrong with developing a policy for us to do that and kind of define the role of that. But then we would have to come back to the table after creating that policy and determine, well, do we need a policy committee right now? I don't know, because I know things change, laws change. So at what point in time do we get a lot of that? Is it normally in July when things are passed through the state? I mean, or is it throughout the year? I mean, I would imagine July is probably one of the biggest times that we have to implement new policy. And of course, the preparation before July when it actually goes into effect. So, right now might be a good time to have a policy subcommittee. But I think that would be something that we would have to determine with Dr. Nicely and the board. So I think creating the policy is the most important part right now. And then have that conversation with our staff to see, do we need to create that subcommittee right now or not? Is there a need for it? Is there not?
And so you're saying that you have a policy, but then you gotta come back and get authority of 3 members to say, we want this.
Subcommittee.
The committee.
Well, you have to take action to actually appoint people to it.
You have to take
Right.
action to appoint people.
And be specific in terms of what they're authorized to do, or like you said, are
Right.
they,
Right.
are
Define the
are
roles.
you giving them the authority to speak on behalf of the board?
No,
And all
right,
those things,
yeah.
right?
It's
Two
in
people
the policy from Bedford, that's how they handle it. It's basically, it's a policy to say we can create committees. These are the 4 committees we can create. This is how they're created, this is how they're assigned at this time of year, this is how they would be dissolved. So it's not ongoing committees. I mean, perfect example would be BCAT. I mean, that CTE committee would have been great to have 2 people that were meeting with the public to answer questions. It just takes things off of, we're not all doing the same job. You can divide and conquer, and you can streamline.
A word that comes to mind would be liaison, maybe? Because you're not gonna be dictating the will of the board.
You can't, you just got 2 people.
Exactly. So
You can't.
you can't do that, and nor should that happen.
But are you talking about, I'm hearing different things, that you guys can figure this out, but are you talking about liaisons to broader standing committees? Because I didn't hear that's what you were suggesting. I thought you were saying the committee would actually just be comprised of 2 school board members, and that's the committee.
The 2 school board members, and then you might be, like, we would work with staff. Like, if it was an intergovernance one, you would work with staff for that, because you guys would be bringing policies to us. And then we would kind of hammer out some of those details without, the emails that fly back and forth, and, you and I on the phone saying, hey, can we change this verbiage? Maybe we should do this way, or, so it's a more effective way of getting things done. And then, for example, the regalia policy, we had some, okay, do we put, what's shoe, what's the shoes that kids can wear? Do we allow sandals or not allow sandals? So there was a lot of back and forth and numerous phone calls over that, whereas if you did it in a public work session where it should be, those discussions can take place with 2 school board members with staff to say, you had some good points. Well, I was like, I think all kids should wear solid closed shoes, and they're nice shoes, and what do you define as formal? David said, well, a lot of these kids wear sneakers nowadays. And do we want to make them wear? And yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that. So there's just a way that we can have these conversations and these dialogues to do better. And by having a policy that says we can create committees makes us work more efficiently, in my opinion.
The one question I had on Bedford's policy was where it says the superintendent and other staff members assigned by the superintendent will serve as liaisons, that word Brent came up with, to standing committees but will not be voting members. Well, what would they be voting on? I mean, what would these committee members be voting on? And if there's just 2 of them, what if it's 1-to-1?
So I think that what that is, let's say Rhonda's not going to vote on a policy. She might bring forth and we kind of but then at the end, would vote.
Would these committees even be voting?
No, you're just a committee. You're just not, voting.
I mean, I think we'd have to write up our own. I mean, I think that would be
Why
something.
why don't we do this in the effort of getting me to my workers at 6 o'clock? Why don't you bring us the policy?
You have it. You've had it.
Well, but I think, no, I get it, but I think because they have 9 members, and what I think I'm taking the same thing you're taking, David, is that, what are you voting on, if that's the case? I think we need to see are you saying do it exactly like that?
I'm
Because
just
I
bringing
wouldn't
forth
be-
their policy. No, I mean, we don't,
The only thing I wouldn't be okay is that we vote on something in that committee.
No, because I think that.
no, you don't vote on something in that committee. No. Do me a favor.
I saw that
I know
part.
you
I
got to
don't
get
know.
out of here. I think it'd be really good for everybody to go back and look at that one more time, read it, digest it,
And I
understand
did.
it, process it, and then we can talk about it again.
And if you go looking for it, just for clarity, on their website, it's actually what they call rules, not a policy, so it's actually a regulation. We would call that a regulation, so, and they don't link them like we do, so you have to literally go under rules to find it, so be aware of that. So it's BCE-R.
Rules,
Yeah.
okay.
It's in your,
Well, I've got it in the email,
You
right?
got it in the
So, yeah, okay.
I see one of theirs under rules and one of them under policy.
Yeah, there is a policy, but it's a very short statement under policy.
Right.
But this whole mechanism that's spelled out.
Right, so they define it clear within, they just say they have a policy that they can create committees,
Right.
right? Which is that, they can create a committee, and then they have the method to the madness written in the rules. Right. Rhonda, did you have a chance to look at it? Oh, see? You needed to get a copy of it. See, we could have worked together on this.
All right, we done?
Yep.
Anybody have anything else? All right,
No.
meeting adjourned.
Did you see it, Ken?